Take a look here on the rookie campaign, which rewrote the record books. 8 assists, finished with 337, most by any player, not just a rookie in the history of the WNBA. Also dished out a single game record, 19 back on July 17th. And the records do not stop there. Clark established rookie records for both points and three-point field goals. The only other rookie with 700 in a season, Simone Augustus, back in 2006, who went on to win Rookie of the Year that season for the Lynx. Clark looking to become the third Fever player to win Rookie of the Year. Meanwhile, she also finished as Indiana's leader in both points and assists, becoming the fourth rookie in league history to lead a playoff team in both categories. First player to do it since the great Candace Parker in 2008. Parker not only won Rookie of the Year that year, she was also the season's MVP. Always a treat to be joined by one of the greats, Rebecca Lobo. As the WNBA season wraps up, the playoffs start with a sprint beginning on Sunday on ABC and ESPN. And Rebecca, so much of the fuel in the WNBA's engine this year has been Caitlin Clark. So much conversation, so much attention. Not all of it great, but hey, that's kind of what you get, right? The wind blows hardest at the top of the mountain. I'm interested in how you would frame her season, and then how you look at the possibility that Indiana could maybe be a spoiler in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean...
Wait, do you guys see this, though, real fast? 5 games with 25 points and 10 assists. All other rookies all-time combined for 1.
Caitlin Clark had a remarkable season. She should be a first-team All-WNBA performer. I have her 4th on my MVP ballot, which is incredible considering how the season started for Indiana. A 1-8 start. Her first game against the Connecticut Sun, she had 10 turnovers. And now she ends up leading the league in assists per game at 8.5, averaging 19 points a game as well. She had an absolutely remarkable rookie campaign. It's going to be really interesting because it kind of comes full circle. Her first game of her career, it was in Uncasville against the Connecticut Sun. Now here in the playoffs, her first playoff game of her career is going to be in Uncasville against the Connecticut Sun. It's going to be interesting to see how much better she is in this playoff game than she was in that first game of her pro career.
Speaking of legends, speaking of Connecticut, I think Diana Taurasi had it wrong. I think she was the reality. I think Caitlin, they should call her the reality because she was coming and she's here in this league. She's been great. But the best player in this league is A'ja Wilson. And the best team has been the Liberty. As you look at the playoffs kind of treetops view, Aces are dangerous because of her, and she's been incredible. Liberty have home court. How do you kind of assess A'ja versus the Liberty if they end up being head-to-head?
All right. Well, listen. We're here to talk about Caitlin Clark for this one because it's weird because it's even the question says, how far can Caitlin Clark and the Fever go in the WNBA playoffs? And then now they want to talk about A'ja Wilson and, the Liberty versus the Aces. So I'm going to continue to talk about Caitlin Clark and where I believe that the Fever can go in this playoffs. It's going to be a tough playoff run, no question about it, for many reasons. But one, before I get into it, I want to say that I absolutely believe that the Indiana Fever can get to the finals. I'm not so sure that they can win the championship, but I am convinced that they can get there. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be so many different layers that will really have to unfold for all of this to happen. And I'm so excited to see how it's going to all go about. And it's not going to be all on Caitlin Clark. Basketball is such a fascinating sport in this regard. Because we remember all these iconic moments, these big moments with stars, throughout basketball, throughout playoffs, throughout championships, whether it be Michael Jordan and his shot, most recently Steph Curry, right, making those threes in the Olympics. But then we lose sight of so many of the little things that matter. In basketball games, especially in the playoffs, so much of it comes down to, yes, of course, sometimes you need Steph to have a 50-point night, right, to beat the Kings and carry them. And other games, to win a ring, you need people that most fans don't really know who they are, except for if it's their team, right? Sean Livingston, Barbosa, knocking down, the way how the Warriors won their first ring, Sean Livingston, who again, outside of maybe like real basketball heads, they're not going to really even know who he is, right? And he's like a legend, especially for Golden State, making just these 10-foot mid-range jumpers, just like knocking down shot after shot after a firecracker off the bench. They really needed it. It wasn't just Steph knocking down 3 after 3 after 3. Don't get me wrong. Those moments happened, of course, but it wasn't just that. Not to mention, Steph Curry has won a lot of championships shooting layups as well, right? Getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. And so there's just so many different things that need to happen. One, Caitlin Clark obviously needs to play great, right? That goes without saying. But she has to be smart. She can't just live and die by the 3. In the playoffs, everything is so situational and so moment to moment. There's certain points that sometimes when things are either kind of getting out of control or sometimes you have the lead and now you're trying to stretch it, you're in a position where it's like you just got to get a bucket or you got to get to the line. That's not when you pull up for a 3. And it's something that Steph Curry understands very well. Same thing with Kevin Durant. The all-time greats understand that. And I want to see Caitlin Clark be able to do that. 2, when Caitlin Clark is passing you perfect passes and you have wide open layups, it's the playoffs now. It's elimination. You gotta hit those shots. You gotta get those layups. You can't just be like, I just missed it. Like, no, that you can't do that anymore. The margin of error just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Everyone's gotta be great. They gotta have great moments. It doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, but you gotta be great. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. You're gonna rely too heavily then on someone like a Kelsey Mitchell or even a Caitlin Clark of being on fire, of putting up 25, 30 points each, right? Like, it's going to be too much of a burden, and that's what happens with the Warriors when their games hang in the balance of whether or not Steph Curry goes 8 for 10 from 3 or 4 for 10. Like, it's you can't hang in that balance. You need to be more resilient come time the playoffs. It's okay during the regular season, not the playoffs. It's just the stakes are too elevated. Boston can't afford to just kind of be a little wishy-washy. She can't afford to disappear. She's the big body. She's got to wear down the defense. She's got to be physical. She's got to put some fear in some of these other bodies put up against her, right? Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell need to continue to out-hustle everyone. And then the other thing is again, some of these other role players. Is Lexi going to have a game where she goes 5 for 5 from 3, or is she going to go 1 for 6, right? Like, all of those things matter tremendously. Like, every single ring, especially in the NBA, it's always decided by so many of those moments. Does Steve Kerr hit that 3 or not, right? Like I said, Sean Livingston knocking down those shots. Like, we can go on and on and on. The Celtics most recently, they pretty much had the exact same nucleus, same stars in years past, and they couldn't get the job done, right? They add in Drew Holiday, and it's just a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. He's not having the big, iconic moments, but he's doing all of the little things, all of the things that are so frequently overlooked. The big hustle plays, getting the rebounds, making the right pass, getting a layup when need be, hitting a shot when need be, all the little things that you desperately need. Desperately need. Porzingis going off. Nobody was expecting that. The first game, Porzingis just goes off in the beginning of the game, and it completely just shocked the Dallas Mavericks. It just shocked them. They were like stunned. They were like, wait, what? Like, this was not what our focus point was on, and it genuinely stunned them. Those are the things that you need to win. And it needs to keep happening. Honestly, it can't just be kind of like a one and done thing. It's not, March Madness, right, where it's single game elimination. So you're gonna need a random game where, like I said, Lexi just goes off. First quarter, she goes 4 for 4, right? Or like Boston just has a 30-point monster game. Like, it's just, those are all the little things that need to collectively happen. You can't just say Caitlin Clark has to lead them to victory. It's just not enough. LeBron hasn't done it. Steph hasn't done it. Jordan hasn't done it. Kobe hasn't done it. It's always a team effort in the playoffs. Yes, these single players can win you a game or two and can be really big in very important moments, but it can't be start to finish. That's how it's going to be. So that's why I'm just, really curious to see how this team can come together. Can they handle the pressure? Can they handle the moment? We know some of them can. We know some of them have been there to a degree, at least in college. But, like, can these other women step up and handle the moment? That's what we have to wait and see. We know Caitlin Clark can handle it. But also, the other thing that I'm looking for out of Caitlin is really a couple things. But the one thing is how smart is she going to play? Is she going to try to do it all herself? Is she going to be able to stay composed when moments get a little rough? I know what she's been able to do in college, but it's just different. It is. It's there's just different levels from college to the pros, especially when you're talking about things also not being single elimination. So I'm just really curious to what level of maturity does she have? Because all of these young athletes, especially in their like rookie year or just earlier on in the career, they're all slightly delusional. They're all slightly delusional. They have a belief in themselves that goes beyond just a level of even cockiness or confidence. Because we know Caitlin is very confident and even cocky, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the same level of like a Kobe or LeBron. But they all have a little bit of delusion when they're real young. They believe that they're going to be able to achieve things in that moment when they really can't, right? I'm sure Kobe, MJ, LeBron, all these guys, they all thought that they were going to win like from the jump. We're seeing it with Caleb Williams in football right now, right? Texting his punter, you're not going to be punting that much, right? And he just and he's gotten humbled very, very quickly. And it's just something that all of these pros go through. Steph Curry, all of them. They all need perspective. And unfortunately, the only way you get perspective is time on task, is maturing, is just getting older and wiser and just understanding things a lot more deeply and layered. And so I'm curious to see if that plays into a factor, because sometimes it can go both ways. Sometimes it could be a good thing, sometimes it could be a bad thing. They talk about this in sports sometimes when a team is so young, they don't know what they don't know, and it actually ends up being a benefit, right? They don't know that they should be nervous going on the road. They don't know that these large swings can happen at any moment, so it can kind of benefit you to a degree as well, but typically it can also catch up with you as well. So that's what makes this first playoff run for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever so exciting. But I do also want to emphasize that expectations should be managed, right? Like, I think Caitlin Clark obviously is unbelievable. I scoffed when she said, oh, she has her own fourth on the MVP. She is one or two. You can absolutely make the argument that Asia Wilson should be the MVP. And the point of this video is to not argue one way or the other. But Caitlin Clark has been playing absolutely undeniably like the top player in the WNBA. And I've already made the argument that Caitlin Clark does more for her team than Asia Wilson. But we're not going to get into that. But my point is that we still have to manage our expectations. She is a rookie. This team is a very unique team. It's not a perfect team for the Indiana Fever. They definitely have some liabilities offensively for sure that can come back, right? A lot of times your weaknesses, something that my dad has always said, your issues during the regular season always come back to haunt you in the playoffs, right? Like the missed layups, the missed passes from Caitlin Clark, some of the turnovers, whatever it may be. Like, those things come to haunt you in the playoffs because everything is magnified. So, Kelsey Mitchell, from my viewpoint, has been too ball dominant, right? As soon as she gets the ball, she just runs and tries to get to the basket right away. And it's like, it messes up the flow. And I've been railing about that, honestly, for weeks or months now. And it's like, does that become a problem? It works when she's on and when her shots are falling, not when they're not. So it's just like, basketball is also so unique. I've talked about this a lot over the months, specifically for, in the NBA, that basketball is so tricky. Because some nights Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the history of the world, right? Obviously. And then other nights, I could shoot better than him. Seriously, I mean, there's some nights that he's shooting like 2 for 10. And you're just like, why? Why is that happening? And it's just like, there's no actual explanation. And in other sports like football, Patrick Mahomes doesn't just randomly lose his ability to throw the ball. It's not like, oh, normally I'm very accurate, but tonight I was just throwing the ball in the dirt or over someone's head every single time. So basketball is so tricky, right? That's why they always refer to the basketball gods. What are the basketball gods going to do? So it's a make or miss league. Sometimes shots are falling, sometimes they don't. So it's just going to be interesting. And I know Caitlin Clark feels it, and I know Caitlin Clark wants to continue to have the greatest rookie year ever, and I know she believes it, but I need the rest of her team to believe it, and I need her to not play too far beyond herself. Caitlin Clark, as she enters the playoffs, her first playoff run, she of course is going to try to play beyond herself, and that's fine. That's great. That's what all these legends do. but it all still has to be in the context of the team. It all has to be in context of what is the right move. And also knowing sometimes when you skip the right play and do it yourself. Sometimes that is something that LeBron James has not always fully learned, because he is a basketball purist and 99.9% of the times is going to make the right play. But sometimes it is do it yourself. And again, a perfect example of that was Steph Curry. Steph Curry shooting that three with two guys over him was technically not even it was 100% the wrong shot. You had a wide open KD and LeBron. So it wasn't the right shot to take, honestly. But Steph Curry in that moment was like, I need to just do this myself. And again, sometimes it's the right decision. Sometimes it's the wrong decision. Sometimes when it goes in, it's easy to say it was the right decision. And if he misses, it's easy to say that was the wrong decision. So it's just that's where the outcome of the situation can always catch up to you. So just definitely really interesting, because Caitlin Clark sometimes is making the right pass, but she's passing to people who can't get the job done in that moment. So then it's like, Caitlin, you just need to take charge. I played for teams where it was like that, where either I was the guy that needed to take charge or I wasn't. And it was just like looking to the other guys and being like, yo, you need to I remember talking to for my one team with one of my players, one of my teammates, and I was more for this team. I was more like the second option, and he was more the first option, although it switched throughout games. And it was clear that game, it was like you need to take over, man. Like, you need to, I need you to take over. And he took it the wrong way. He got mad, and he was like, what about you? You need to step up. And I'm like, I'm saying, like, you need to take over. Like, I'm trying to, like, pump you up, not challenge you in a negative way, not saying, like, you're playing bad. But it's tough. It's why basketball is so poetry in motion. It's jazz. It's not 100% written in the stars. I'm really pulling out the analogies here, but it's improv. You have to feel the flow of the game, right? If Lexi Hall is making all her shots, yeah, you want to get her the ball. You ride that wave. You don't now try to ruin it by trying to get your own points or your own moment. But if it's clear that those other girls on the team are not handling the moment, they're not handling the pressure well, then you gotta take over. But it's such a delicate balance. It really, really is. And it takes time to figure that out. It takes time when to figure it out, when, like, this is my quarter, and then I'm gonna get other people involved, or I'm gonna try to get people involved. Because you see LeBron James do this all the time, actually, throughout his years, where there's some playoff games where it's clear he's trying to get everyone else going. He's like, I'm gonna take over later in the game, but I gotta get these other guys going. And then there's other games where it's clear these other guys aren't getting going. I gotta just get my points now. I gotta get out there. Because otherwise we're gonna be down by 20 going into the second quarter. It's just a fascinating thing to watch, honestly. So yeah, that's why, like, these are all just honestly big giant question marks to me with regarding to Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark specifically, of course, because we've never seen it before, right? We've seen a lot of these other teams, these other women play in the playoffs, so we can have a little bit deeper of an understanding of what to expect. I don't know how we could have any idea what to expect come time, their first game. So I just can't wait, honestly. Like, when I was thinking about recording this video, I'm just like, this is so exciting. This is so exciting. The biggest mistake the WNBA made, because surprise, surprise, they just, I guess they just hate popularity. They're like, let's start the playoffs with Caitlin Clark on Sunday, football Sunday. And it's like, I don't care how Caitlin Clark is. She's not big enough to surpass the NFL, okay? It's literally the NFL. It is so dominant. It's like not even a question. And it's like, why did you guys not design this in a way where you have, the first playoff game on Tuesday, or maybe even Monday, even though it's Monday Night Football, at least you're not competing against everyone's, the entire country has games being played. At least it was just, a couple games on Monday. So it's just like they could have just did this on Tuesday, and you would have had so much more eyes on deck. Because also, honestly, even if you're talking about media like this outside of YouTube, I'm not anticipating a lot of these shows really covering Caitlin Clark on Monday, or just or WNBA as a whole, because Sunday football is just so massive. I know just from my own experience doing these channels, so I know it's definitely like that for the big gigantic networks. And it's just like, what are you doing? You could have had Tuesday all to yourself, Caitlin Clark, first playoff game ever, and you would have smashed the records. And you probably still are. There's probably going to be a great chance that they still are going to have record numbers for the playoffs, especially for the Caitlin Clark games. But I promise you, it could have been even more. Without a doubt, it could have been even more. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Why don't you guys know how to run the league? Why don't you know how to run this like a business, like an entertainment company that it is? Like, what don't you guys understand? Why do you make things more difficult for yourselves? But yeah, I'm excited either way. That was just my little WNBA. Like, I had to vent about that because when I found out what the schedule was, I'm just like, what are we doing here, guys? Caitlin Clark's first playoff game ever during the most historic rookie season we've ever seen. She's literally the next LeBron James, the next Michael Jordan, the next Steph Curry, the next Kobe Bryant. And you're just gonna like have her have a playoff game in the middle of a random Sunday where it's just the heart of the NFL season right now. Gosh, crazy. But those are just my thoughts, and we shared a lot. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think Caitlin Clark can go far? Can they reach the finals? Do you think, no, she's a rookie, this is a young team and not a good enough team to really make some moves in the playoffs? And what do you think about how the WNBA has structured their playoff schedule? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.